Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about jacking up your C4 Corvette. So several videos ago, I did these DIY 2x4 jack stands. I had a lot of questions about jacking points, where to put the jack, where to put the jack stands, and also how I actually got it up on those. So I figured since I'm getting ready to do the 6-speed swap, I'm going to put it up on them anyway. So I just want to go over all the jacking points on the car, what I use, and where I put my jack to get my car as high as I can, or just if you're bringing your car for an oil change, you know, the front apron sits kind of low in these cars. So what's the best way to go around getting the car jacked up to work on it? So I'm gonna go over a couple little things that I do, and then we'll get this thing in the air. Okay, so something I use around here a lot with my cars being lowered is these. These are 2x6 pieces of wood that I've nailed together and made a little ramps. So what this does essentially is, you know, you come up once, you come up twice, and then this stops the wheel so you know where you're at. So this allows you to get a jack easily if you want to come right in the front. So you put these on the two front wheels, you drive the car up on it, and at this point you can actually take the jack, put it under the front cross member of the car, and the jack won't actually hit the apron. Because even if your car's not lowered, a lot of times once you get the jack underneath there, you don't have enough room to handle to lift it up and get momentum to jack the car up. So these come in handy when you pull it up on there. You have a lot of room to come to the front, the side, or wherever. Even backing your car up on them work as well. So I use these a lot. So even if you had a lift or whatever, you still need to get the car up high enough to get the arms underneath of it. And when you have a lower car, coilovers, or just your drop maybe an inch or two, sometimes with these, because they sit so low, it's hard to get a jack underneath it. So they come in handy. It's one of the first things I do. Even when I lift this thing all the way up with air ride, sometimes to come in the sides, especially now with my frame connectors, I almost can't get in there all with a jack unless I drive up on them. So that's one thing I do. The bottom one is 36 inches. The second tier is 18.5 inches, and that top little stopper piece is 2 inches. So 2x6, you can go up to Home Depot, buy the wood, screws, put a set together, and it really kind of shaves some time out when it comes to jacking things up. So the next thing we'll go over is the side jacking points that are on the car, and there's little arrows showing you where to put the jack. Well, let's take a look at that. Okay, so right behind the front wheel, you will see an arrow here and an arrow here. These two markings. Right in between here is where you want to roll your jack under. So there's one in the front here, and then same thing there. One there and one there. So underneath there is the pinch part of the frame. It's a real thin part that runs down, and then this piece of body runs right along with it, and I'll show you what that looks like. You have to picture it almost like this. This inside piece is the frame piece, and here is the body piece that runs parallel with it. So it's not a big, thick, square frame. It's just this little piece that your jack's going to catch. So you have to almost get it with your jack like that. Because if you push it in too far, in some areas you can hit the fiberglass and damage it. So you almost want to hook it in there like that. And once I get this jacked up, we'll look at all that, but I just want to give you an idea of what you're actually working with before you just throw the jack underneath there and smash the floor. All right, so at this point, you can take your jack, go right in on this side here, and jack one side up at a time, or you can take it and go right in the center of the car and slide it back. So there's the front cross member of the frame. You can put the jack right in the center and jack it up from there. All right, so probably the easiest way to get it on all four jack stands is to go side by side. So I'm going to show you that. So I have it right on the frame there at that jacking point. So it's just kind of on enough of the frame to grab. Obviously my frame stiffener is kind of keeping it from going back any further, but all you really need is just to get on that little frame piece enough and not back too far. Okay, as you can see, just by that jacking point there, you can get the whole left side of the car up in the air. So once you get it high enough, go ahead and grab two jack stands, and we're gonna put one in the front and one in the rear, and then go over to the other side. Okay, so I'm underneath the front of the car here, and this is the frame piece here, and this is that pinched frame metal piece that I was talking about that runs along the rocker there, which the jack is on. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide my jack stand underneath here, slide it all the way up like that, make sure it's locked in place, and then move to the back one. All right, just to give you a better idea, this would be the body part, and right next to it is the frame part. So it's pretty thin, so when you're putting your jack underneath there, you just need to grab this front lip here. So I'm going to show you a couple areas where I put my jack stands. So there is a frame area on here, like there, it's perfect, or sometimes even on right in here. So something like this will work, or even something like that. Make sure it's locked in and then slowly loosen your jack and sit it down. So this is back at the front where I have the jack. Just wanted to show you a couple things. So you can see that it's right on the frame. Obviously my frame stiffener's here, but if you put the jack in too far, here is the floor right here. So if you just kind of blindly threw the jack underneath here and you had plenty of clearance, you could easily crush your floor. So you just want to make sure you're grabbing on that lip right in there. Okay, so I'm on the passenger side and I have this underneath the frame rail in the same location as the other side. Besides being on a level surface when you're jacking the car up, you want to make sure the height of the jack stands are all the same. So I normally just count how many teeth are sticking out of each one, so it's level left and right. All right, once you get the car all jacked up on the jack stands, you want to kind of shake the car down, push in the front and the back, make sure the thing's not teetering around on the jack stands at all. You want to make sure everything's level and it's seated nicely and secure before you get underneath the car. So all 4 jack stands are on there, and that is pretty much jacked up. That's probably about as high as you need for brakes, oil change, anything like that. So if you want to go higher, it gets to be as simple as this. Just blocks of wood. I'll use those now in the front cross member to get the front as high as I need, and I'll use them on the back of the car, usually from side to side, to get it up higher, which we'll start doing now. Okay, so now you can see where the cross member is, and I have this centered right in the center, also in between the wood there, so everything's kind of even and safe, that it's not teetering on either end of the jack. And I'll jack this up in stages. I'll go up as high as I can with this wood, and I'll adjust the jack stands in the front, and then I'll go along the back and do the same thing. All right, so I brought over some heavy duty jack stands I have. Now they're a lot taller than the basic car jack stands. So I'm just pretty much using these because I gotta get it up super high to get those wood jack stands underneath each wheel. So I'm gonna just go ahead and slide these on this part of the cross member here. For some reason, if you had to use the suspension, like if you had a flat or something, were in a desperate situation where you needed to jack up the car from the suspension, keep in mind you can technically do that, but what's going to happen is you're going to compress the suspension all the way up first before it actually starts lifting the car up. So it's something I wouldn't recommend doing, but if for some reason it was stuck in a ditch and you had to get it up or something like that, the only place to get a jack is underneath the control arm or something, even in the rear, you can do that, but just keep in mind it's going to compress all the way up before it even starts lifting the car up. Okay, so now I'm going to start jacking at the back. So because my jack stand is where it is, it's hard to get the jack actually on that designated jack area, but I do have it over here on the frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up enough, and then I'm going to slide this jack stand more inboard on the frame to a place right back there, which I'll show you, just so I can have enough room to slide the jack over here now. Or actually I'm going to probably end up putting it on here, but you can go right under here on the frame and start jacking up on either side. All right, so there I have the jack up on that frame piece back there. So that's a safe place for a jack stand underneath here in the rear. Anywhere on here you can put a jack stand. Also, if you're able to do it, you can put a jack stand right where the jack goes, but that would be kind of hard because then you wouldn't be able to get the jack underneath there. So those are all the areas in the rear that you can put a jack stand after you jack it up around this location. Okay, so in the front, a couple areas to put jack stands are here. Also, you can put it flat on this frame rail area here. You can also put it along the cross member here on the outside, kind of like what I have there. I would stay away from putting it on this cross support here. I also would stay away from putting it underneath the control arm too. All right, so one other little area that I want to talk about, it's kind of hard to do it on my car, just the way the exhaust is ran. I I do it a lot on my C3. I go underneath here and I put the jack right underneath the differential and jack the car straight up. For some reason, you have clearance in between your rear differential. It's the same thing as the front going in right in the center of the car on that front cross member. You can come right underneath here, right underneath the differential, and lift the back straight up. So unfortunately I can't do it here because of the exhaust, but that's also an option too. Okay, now I'm just gonna go ahead and jack this thing all the way up and get these jack stands underneath each wheel. So I got blocks of wood on top of the jack there, underneath the front cross member. So I'm gonna go ahead and jack this up and then slide these underneath. Okay, so this is how I do the rear. Just blocks of sketchy looking wood. Got it up high enough so I could get that underneath there. All right, so that's it for today's video. So just remember, keep the jack stand and the jack on the actual frame itself, make sure it's level, and just make sure the thing's not rocking back and forth before you get underneath it. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.